Hi, I'm Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the Senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville. My very special guest today is the Lieutenant Governor of Maryland, Boyd Rutherford. Governor Rutherford, thank you so much for taking the time to kibitz with me today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I've got a ton of questions for you. I have to start with the fact that you went to Howard University, which is where my mom went and where our vice president went. Will you tell us briefly what that was like for you and how that formed your career?
Well, I don't know if I went to school with your mom, but the vice president was after me. I started, I grew up in Washington, D.C. And my first year of school, I went to a university in Boston, Northeastern University. And so I transferred from there back home to go to Howard. Boston was a culture shock for me in 1979, 1980. It was going through what they call phase one busing, and it was a very difficult time for race relations in Boston. And coming from Washington, which had been, particularly at that time, a majority African-American city where you just didn't have that kind of situation going on. It was really shocking. So after the year was out, plus I didn't care for the weather in Boston. The first snow, which is probably in late October, is still on the ground until April. And that was not fun either. So I came back and went to Howard and enjoyed my time there. It was a good experience. I was a commuter. I lived at home and either rode my bike or took the bus to school. So that was my life there.
Great. So you worked at the federal level at GSA as well as the Department of Agriculture. Talk about the difference and the transition from federal government to state government.
The federal government, as you can imagine, is just huge. It's just, you really are kind of continuing whatever the administration, it can be the political administration or, the career administration, what they have been doing and what they've been focusing on in the previous years, because it's very difficult to make change because it is so large. You definitely feel much more removed from the citizenry at the federal level than you do at the state level. At the state level, you can see things change quickly. In legislation in a year or through the budget process, you can see initiatives come to fruition. Whereas it takes a period of time in the federal government. But I did enjoy being in both places, and I think was able to do some effective things in both agencies during the time I was there.
Good for you. So I used to call it, I had some federal government experience as well, and I used to call it sort of small fish, big pond, or bigger fish, small pond, and it is satisfying to get stuff done.
So, well, you're closer to the people when you're in the state level. You're closer to, and you have to be more responsive to the citizens because they typically know who you are.
Exactly. So then you ran the Department of General Services here in the state, and you were kind of known as the guy who can make the trains run on time. Tell me what you're proudest of being able to apply that skill as Lieutenant Governor.
I think it was really getting a lot of our projects done on time and at or below budget. I definitely took very seriously, and I still do, maintenance of our buildings. And that is something that has always been a challenge. It's a challenge for the federal government too, is that the only constituency for buildings, government buildings, are government employees. And they're not often heard, because they compete when it comes to maintaining your buildings with education, with criminal justice, with roads and transportation. They're all competing with those things that the voters at home are concerned about. They're generally not thinking in terms of, oh, we want the offices where our government workers work to be nicer. And so I always felt it was very important to maintain our buildings. And I can remember in a budget committee meeting, subcommittee meeting, and telling the senator at that time, I said, Senator, you don't come to, and your colleagues don't come to a ribbon cutting on a new roof or a new HVAC system or, lead or asbestos remediation. You want to come to a groundbreaking on a new building, but we got to maintain those buildings and we have to maintain what we have.
Absolutely. It's just like being a homeowner, getting new windows that are energy efficient, totally not sexy, doesn't help anything except it's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do. And, and it costs money right now, but it saves you over a long period of time.
Yeah. So you're identified with a lot of important issues. So we're not going to have time to cover all of them, but issues like procurement, which I've also been working on. I have 2 bills, procurement bills. Let's start with that one briefly. Is that a fixable problem? Because it sure is, you headed a commission. Have we made progress?
Yeah, I think we have. And that's probably something we should talk more about, at another time so that make sure it continues, after we leave office. Yes, I think there's been substantial progress, particularly with the new eMaryland Marketplace Advantage. And as we continue to roll out new modules to really make it a full soup to nuts procurement system from the bid and pre-bid to contract management side of it as well, and be able to look at the data that comes back to identify where we're saving money, where we're getting best value, and how we're utilizing small and minority and women-owned businesses. So I do believe we've made progress. Having a chief procurement officer helps a lot. Consolidating procurement, so that we don't have all these different control agencies that don't talk to each other, but bringing the procurement under one roof in terms of, now transportation is on their own, but the other non-transportation entities, having them as one control agency, I think has streamlined the process and a better working relation with the Board of Public Works.
Yes. So now we just have to have better transparency, better accountability. And as you said, small minority women-owned business, but our nonprofits are not part of the prompt payment act.
Well, the payment issue is always, and particularly subcontractors, and that's always going to be a challenge. We encourage, and I'm not talking about the nonprofits, but the for-profit businesses to really participate in the Small Business Reserve Program, because you're a prime contractor there, and we have a direct contract with you. In terms of subcontractors who often complain that it's a delay in getting paid, they may be on a 30-day payment schedule, but the prime contractor also may be on 30 days. Or on 15 days, and they often aren't going to pay until they get paid.
Right.
And so that makes sense. It creates, cash flow issues for that subcontractor.
Agreed.
So there are areas to work on. The problem is the state doesn't have a direct contract with that sub.
Right.
So that you can only really address it almost after the fact with the prime in terms of looking at their past performance.
Right. So let's pivot. You and I share concerns about election administration.
In the state of Maryland.
In the state of Maryland. So let's start with being clear. I'm a Democrat, you're a Republican. Do you believe that the 2020 elections in Maryland were fair, accurate, and transparent?
Transparency, I think, was an issue. I think they could have been run better, smoother. I wouldn't go on to say that they weren't fair. Okay. I think they were fair, but I think it could have been a lot smoother. The process, I think it could have been better information in terms of how to go about voting and voting locations and getting a mail-in ballot and how that's going to be handled. I have major concerns with the executive director of the elections, the Board of Elections, not the board, but the administration there.
Yep.
And it's a difficult, well, not a difficult situation. It is, as you know, there was legislation passed that essentially made it difficult for a governor to remove the sitting executive director.
Yep.
It really is in the hands of the Senate president, quite frankly.
Yep.
If he, and we've had he's as Senate presidents, if he were to say the board can do what it thinks is best, I think we would have a different leadership there. And you need to change every now and then. If nothing else, it brings a different thought process. And I often say, when I was in the federal government, I was an appointee, and I would tell the career staff, the value of having an appointee come in, a new one, is that I will ask the why question. Why do we do it this way?
Yes.
So, and then it kind of forces you to think about you as that career person, to think about, well, are we doing it in the most effective way? Or is this just because this is the way we've always done it?
Always done it. Right. I hate that. I hate that.
Yeah.
So if you had a magic wand, and in addition to getting a new administrator of the State Board of Elections, what's one thing about our election process that you would want to change? Anything come to mind?
Well, one thing, I had an opportunity to go out with the National Guard to Estonia. And Estonia is kind of in the news now because they sit on the border with the Great Russian Bear.
Right.
But they have been able, and they're leading the world really in cybersecurity. And they have to. They were the first country that was attacked, had a cyber attack from a nation state. Russia attacked them. And so, and because they're a small population state with a pretty good size, they did a lot more online, and they have online voting. And I think that's something where you can vote from your mobile device. Now, it requires that you have security, and you have to have a way of identifying that person to make sure, and then it's a one vote count. But we've talked about that. I've talked about that with Secretary Leahy in terms of how can we start, because the federal government is not,
technology.
Yeah, the federal government is not ready for that.
Right.
But most things do start in the states.
Yeah.
And there's probably a way to start to move in that direction. If nothing else, we could start with state employees. We can start with federal employees who have the secure IDs, and move into that direction. So that's one of the things.
Fascinating. All right.
It would take a while, but it's something that can be done if we want to focus on it.
I wonder what that would do for people's confidence in the security and accuracy and fraud.
Well, it will take, and it will take time. And, we need to do probably generally across the country, really do a better job of informing and teaching the citizens about cybersecurity and how they can secure their systems, and how you need to be more conscious of your data.
Right.
And we probably need to open up, like you said, transparency. Open up that the data is ours and is not someone else's. In Estonia, before a doctor can look at your medical record, they have to get your permission to do that. Now you would assume that is there, but they have to get, because the data belongs to you.
Right. Well, that's an interesting perspective. So, so what do you like best about being lieutenant governor, and what do you like least?
What do I like best about being? The best thing is that when you travel, you go to the front of the line.
That's nice.
You go around security in the airport, so that's probably the best. I don't know, least it's probably sometimes just the political back and forth, where a person can agree on a particular issue, but they feel they can't vote in that particular way or support that because we support it. That can be frustrating in terms of let's just get some things done. Everybody's going to take credit. Everyone goes back to their constituents and can take credit for it.
Right.
And so that's a little frustrating. Just that the political dynamic of if if you are successful, that means I lose. And if I'm successful, it means you lose. So, that's the frustrating part.
That's what makes people cynical about politics, is when
Yeah,
they
it
hear
does.
stories like that. And I just think that's silliness. I always
It
make
really is.
yeah, almost every year. This year I didn't get to it because you guys didn't schedule it with enough time for me to run upstairs. But I always went up to the second floor and I would look at the governor's priorities and find one or two to sign on to as a co-sponsor, just on principle of like, there's a lot of shared
If
values.
you agree, yeah, if you agree, fine. If you disagree, that's fine also.
Right.
And sometimes you can, and really, if you take process through kind of a regular order, then you get a chance to debate and might be able to come to a compromise somewhere along the line where you don't get everything you want, the other side doesn't get everything they want, but you're moving it forward, you're moving, and progressing to the point of addressing most of the issues that you were concerned about.
Right. So what is something you learned about the state of Maryland that you didn't know?
That we had 75 parks in the state. That's one that I definitely did not know. And how nice that the parks are and accessible that they are. And so that's been something I've been doing over the last several years, is hitting the state parks.
And you're going to visit number 60 and 61 this week.
Tomorrow, yes.
Yeah. So then you're working your way towards 75. That's fantastic.
Working our way towards 75. And Secretary Hathaway Riccio of the Department of Natural Resources is telling me that there may be a couple of additional parks named. So,
okay.
So just as I'm saying, oh, finally through.
Right.
No, there's one more here. So.
That's great, though. I love that. So I, during COVID, was able to get to my 49th and 50th state capitol. And sometimes there's something really great about that kind of goal and accomplishment.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll be my next trek.
There you go. I'll give you some tips if you want. What sort of, you decided not to run for governor. Anything you want to say about that?
I did not, in the very beginning, set out to be governor. And I can tell you, during the campaign, when we were running around, the first campaign, running around, trying to get people to pay attention to us.
Yeah.
There were times when, I could see that Governor Larry Hogan was really tired, and he would complain that he wasn't sleeping well. And I said, you need to rest, because I don't want you dropping dead, because I don't want to be governor. So I didn't really set out in that. And I thought about it, of course, as you got to the second term and after the 2020 election, and everybody's like, are you going to run? Are you going to run? And, you'll get people saying they want you to run. And so your ego gets involved. And also, I just feel that we've done a lot of nice things, good things over the last several years. And it may be an opportunity to continue. And there are certain areas that I would want to focus a little bit more in. But I had a chance to, in talking to my wife, she wasn't thrilled about that idea.
Right.
And that's an understatement.
Right.
And so that made me have to step back and really think about it. Is this something I really want?
Right.
And, would I want to put her in a position where she's agreeing to something that she doesn't want to agree to?
Right.
And so I just said, no, it's not something I really want. I don't want it that badly. I would be doing it, and maybe sometimes you do things for other people, but I would be, running for governor for other people. And I just didn't think it was something I wanted to do at this point in my life.
Makes sense. Makes sense. What advice would you give to the next lieutenant governor?
I'd ask, or I'd suggest that they try to really develop a partnership with the governor, understanding that the governor is the senior partner, but also a real partnership where you can identify areas that you want to work on, and he or she allows you to do that, allows you to work on those, and that you be involved in major decisions that are being made, that you're there, at the table, or at least briefed on major initiatives and decisions that are made.
Yep, makes sense. Before we go to our Fast Five, You have been lieutenant governor and an important statewide leader when Freddie Gray was murdered, when George Floyd was murdered. As an African-American man, as a leader, what sort of role or responsibility did you feel sort of, I don't know, sort of stood on your shoulders?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those situations where I've been around long enough that these types of events have happened before. They just didn't get the kind of notoriety that they did, particularly, over the last year, 2 years, I guess it is. And so I think the responsibility is to call out injustice where it is, but also, be a very positive role model and talk about those other role models that were here before us, before me, before, even our parents. And so it's really, giving a sense of hope, being positive about the future, positive about even the current, reminding people that things were worse than what they are now. I mean, sometimes young people get caught up, young people like yourself, young people get caught up with the news of the minute, and sometimes forget that, now we have 24-hour news that covers the nation versus, what's going on in your community as much. And they don't have that perspective that, things are better today than they were 20 years ago. Things are better today than they were 50 years ago. And that perspective gets lost because they can sometimes think we're in the worst of the worst. And no, it's not. When I was a kid, I didn't see it, but my parents and I couldn't eat in all the restaurants in downtown DC. So, it's a different world than it was. Prince George's County, was a place where as a DC kid, we didn't go to Prince George's County. As a teenager, it was like, no, you didn't want to be in Prince George's County. And I can remember just being that far over the line in Hyattsville, and the PG County cops sent us home, and it was a carnival that was going on, and we hadn't done anything. Just came up and said, "No, where are you from?" I said, "Well, we live about a mile away in Northeast DC," and he said, "No, you gotta go." Why? Why do we have to go? What about those kids there? No, you have to go.
People don't know the history, and young people don't know the history. I mean, Glen Echo, African American kids weren't allowed to ride the carousel, and there were lynchings in my district in Rockville. I mean, it's just, it's horrifying. But anyway, let's shift to our the Fast Five. Lieutenant Governor Boyd Rutherford, 5 quick questions for quick answers. Let folks get to know you better. First off, if there's is there a new hobby that you've taken up during COVID?
During COVID, I guess it's more of the going to the parks more than anything else.
Okay. After the pandemic, God forbid, I mean, let's hope, right? That's soon. Yes. Assuming that neither time nor money were the pandemic, were an obstacle, where would you like to go travel?
Where would I like to travel? I'd say back to Europe, probably to France. I don't know, there are a number of places. I really enjoyed my time in Jerusalem. I have to say, I turned into a hummus snob. I really was not a hummus fan beforehand, getting the hummus that you buy in the store in a little tub.
Yeah.
And so someone said, "You really got to try this," when we were in Jerusalem. And so now it's like, if it's not from Jerusalem, I'm sorry.
I love that. What is a nonprofit organization that you support that you want to make a brief pitch for? A Maryland-based nonprofit.
A Maryland-based nonprofit. That's a good one. I don't know, because I'll probably make somebody upset.
See, this is why everybody likes you. You don't divide there. So
well, yeah. I guess I'm just most recent, I was at the Annapolis Museum. It's down on Main Street, down right by the
Near the
harbor.
water.
Yeah, and so it's a very, very good, well-maintained building. I think they're doing their grand opening in another week,
Nice.
maybe 2 weeks. And so I would say, you know, the local museums.
Nice. Do you know that I walk by it every day on my way up to the Senate? And do you know that I've never walked in? I'll have to,
Oh, okay.
I'll
I
have
think
to rectify that.
I think they closed it for a while to redo some things.
Yeah.
And it has the original acorn that was on the top of the State House there.
Right. Nice. Well, I will have to check that out. What's your favorite place to go out for a romantic dinner with your wife?
Romantic dinner with my wife. I guess we go to Stanford Grill from time to time in Columbia. The King's Contrivance, probably the King's Contrivance restaurant, because it's smaller, it's older, it's, you know, in terms of, you know, the amount of people that are in the dining areas.
Nice.
So probably, yeah.
Okay, good.
King's Contrivance restaurant.
And the fifth question, Lieutenant Governor Boyd Rutherford, the question that I ask everybody is, what is your hidden secret superpower? What is a skill or talent that you have, you know, something you can do that most folks can't?
Something I can do that most folks can't. I studied martial arts for a long time, and so I'm not great at it, but I'm getting better at knife throwing.
Wow. Okay. Good thing we like each other.
It's only at home. I mean,
Okay.
not at home. I mean, I have a target in my basement, so that's something.
Okay. All right. Wow. Well, this has been delightful. Thank you so much, Governor Rutherford, for your time, for your leadership, for your dedication to serving our state, for stepping in when Governor Hogan got sick. And we're excited to see how you're going to spend your years after you leave office. Thank you for all you've done.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Stay well. Stay safe.
You too.
Bye-bye.